We're back with Brett from RideTech because we're getting ready to install the rear suspension. So we've got the rear AirBar setup, the sway bars, the links, the shocks, the bracketry.
Well, this is a complete bolt-in rear suspension for the early Camaros. A lot of these guys with the early Camaros don't want to cut their car up. You know, we've created the AirBar system that goes in under the stock floor pan. There's no cutting, there's no welding on the body. There is a little bit of welding on the rear end housing, but not on the body. So conceivably, if at some point you decide to restore the car or go back stock, right, you can take the thing out and put your leaf springs back in if that's what you want to do.
Well, one of the cool things though too is that if a guy doesn't have a welder and doesn't want to weld the brackets and he's only got a 10-bolt rear end in, it means he needs a 12-bolt or a 9-inch anyway. He's going to call Mosier, they're going to put the brackets on for him, he doesn't need to weld anything.
Right, that's exactly right. So what happens is the slotted holes that you see right here are existing holes in the Camaro subframe. So you stick the thing in there, you line it up with those holes, and then the rest of the holes are drilled. And you'll also notice that we pick up the load always in two different planes. So you've got fasteners going this way, you've got fasteners going that way, so it spreads the load out as it should. Yes, you can weld it. If you're not happy with the bolts that hold it in, it's fine, weld it. But you know, there's a lot of people that don't have a welder. There's probably some that shouldn't have a welder. So, you know, that's why we made it bolt-in.
People are familiar with the triangulated four-link. You see them on Chevelles and
right,
all kinds of different vehicles. Right. But there's a couple of things that are special about the four-link components in this. I mean, these lower bars are not your standard.
We offset the bar according to the bushing, and we offset it for tire clearance.
Okay.
You know, usually the leaf spring runs through here, and you always got tire clearance problems.
Right.
So when we offset that bar, we give you about an extra 3/4 of an inch of tire clearance in there, so the tires don't rub. The other thing that we do with this, we put a hymen in here for some articulation. All the fasteners are included, and there's a bunch of it.
Yeah.
You know, grade 8 fasteners, fine threaded bolts, Nylux, all American made fasteners.
One other thing I had a question on. This sway bar, which is way cool because it's keyed and it has these fancy brackets, it looks tiny.
You really don't need a big sway bar in the back of these cars. In fact, if you have a car that hasn't been mini tubbed and you're using a standard size tire like a 275 or a 285 rear tire, I don't think you need the sway bar at all. It'll
right,
actually make the thing oversteer. But this car, along with a couple others that we've done previously, has a 335 wide tire,
which is huge.
Which gave the car a whole lot more rear bite, which allowed us to, you know, tighten the car up a little more in the back and helped it turn in on the front. So, you know, little tired car doesn't need the sway bar. Don't spend the money on it.
Yeah.
Big tired car does need the sway bar, but it doesn't need a big sway bar.
Right.
This is all it needs. And we arrived at this 3/4 inch solid bar by going out and doing testing with Velocity a few years ago. You know, we tried several different diameters, we tried several different shock settings and all that kind of stuff, and this is what we came up with that the car was the happiest with. If you have an AirBar that you bought previous to about 08, it may not have these tabs on it, but they're available in the sway bar kit that you can weld them right on. We haven't changed this part at all. Right. We did add the tabs there for the sway bar.
So if you want to do that upgrade, you can.
Yes. Nope.
Everybody that has ever installed a set of poly bushings on a sway bar has had them squeak. If you say you haven't had one squeak, you're lying and you never put one in. So the cool thing is that theirs come pre-drilled. The bushing is also drilled and slotted on the inside, so it will retain grease and you'll be good and squeak free. Well, and just like the front, this thing's going to have the killer swivel links, obviously, for our end links.
Yep, the posi links. Yep.
Yep, those things are awesome.
Yep.
Same deal, tons of articulation,
yep,
much smoother operation, and
no
we're also
bind.
Yeah, no bind, and we're also running the triple adjustable shocks.
Yep. Now the cool thing about the AirBar is you don't have to use air with it. You don't have to use a shockwave. The shockwave and the coil-over are strictly interchangeable.
Right. So a guy that has air and wants coilovers, or starts with coilovers and decides he wants air, either way, bolt them in, you're done.
And you know, everybody, I've had a few questions about why are we doing a coilover on this car? Well, he says that next week or next month or whatever, it may end up with shockwaves on it. We'll just see which one's fastest.
Right. How long's installation take on one of these?
You know, usually, just like on the front, usually when you're putting in a rear suspension, you're also doing brakes, you're doing a new rear end, you got to do your exhaust, you got to do everything else. So it's hard to say, but I mean, I wouldn't see, with the car in the shape it's in now, I think we can get this thing in there in a couple hours, easy.
Very good. It's good because we only have 48 total and we've already burned up 11 of them.
Yep.